All right. Cool. Well, we've got someone viewing now, so I think maybe we should get started. Yeah. I guess. Well, hello everyone watching.
Say who you are.
I'm Lucy. I am well, an ecologist with a big focus on fireflies. You might have seen me in the group. We also have Helen Schwenk here, who's also a science communicator, and ecologist, and of course we also have Leslie joining us, who I think maybe you can see. Let me just change it. What's streaming over here? Let's see if she'll come up. But we also have Leslie here, who is an incredible firefly scientist. Do you want to introduce yourself, Leslie?
Oh, hello, everybody.
All right. Well,
Leslie's been working on fireflies since 1961 and is
don't rub it in, Helen.
and is responsible for all the taxonomic work on fireflies. So everything that we know basically is because of the work Leslie's done. This needs acknowledgement. We're not rubbing it in.
Before we get too started, also I would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land that we're streaming on. So this is we are on Jagera land and Turrbal land here, in the engine. Leslie, do you know the name of the people where you are in Canberra?
Oh, I think it's Ngunnawal country, but no, I don't. No, they say it every night on the news, and I forget.
Well, that sounds about right, I think. But yeah, so I guess we can kind of get started. We've had a few sort of questions come in beforehand. Some people sent in questions sort of the other day. So let's kind of get started. Let's start talking about fireflies. Let's have a look. Where are they? All right. Well, one of the questions I had written down, Leslie, is and I think one that has also been Helen has mentioned in the event is what do fireflies have any like preferences for particular plants? Like what tell us more about fireflies in general. I know this is something we went over a little bit last time on our last stream, but that was months ago. We've had a lot of new people join the group. Can give us a little rundown about maybe like just a little bit the bare basics of fireflies and their ecology, maybe.
Well, I think I might get back to this business about the firefly plant because we tend to, because Helen works on butterflies and that's her main focus, and we all know that you can attract different butterflies to your garden by putting certain plants there because that's what the caterpillars will eat. Fireflies are not like that. So fireflies their larvae are feeding on snails and slugs. And the only plant that I can think of, and this will make the Queenslanders laugh, is that the only plant that I've ever seen where I could be fairly sure that I could find firefly larvae underneath it was lantana. And it was not a good plant to go crawling under. But that's the answer in a nutshell to where you're not going to be able to plant. It'd be an incredible business to try to replicate an environment so that you get fireflies in your backyard. That's a very, very hard thing to do.
Why might that be? If lots of other insects eat particular plants, why don't fireflies?
Fireflies don't eat plants.
Okay.
They don't eat plants. Their larvae are carnivorous. They feed on snails and slugs. Helen suggested at various stages that it may be the snails and slugs are determined perhaps by the fungal growth on the leaf litter. So, you see them in rainforest. We're seeing them at the moment at Burleigh Heads in the national park up there. And it's all the leaf litter there, which is contributing towards their success there because their larvae have been feeding on the snails and slugs, very, very small snails and slugs that are feeding on the leaf litter.
If they are in leaf litter, how do we protect their habitat? Obviously,
stay on the path.
Staying on the path.
Stay on the path, Lucy. Stay on the path. I was just noticing that there's, I think it was Nelson put in something about the Lions Park there at Corona Downs, and there's on our site today. There's a sign there. It says, protect the fireflies here. Stay on the path. Because that's what you do. You go into a national park, and one of the things it says is don't get off the path because you're just trampling on them all. So one of the questions I think that you had, so we may as well hop ahead because I've seen some of these questions already that have already been asked, and they were what do you do? Where are they when you don't see them? They're there. They're in exactly the same place where you saw their display last night. That's where they still are. Next week or the week after, when the firefly, the adults are all gone, the immature stages are still there in that same area. So you can understand why protecting that particular patch of environment is so important.
So does that mean that when it comes to, if someone has fireflies on their property, and because people would like to, well, they would like to plant for fireflies, how you can plant for butterflies, but would that mean that the most important thing, if you already sort of have them on your land, is to like not mulch and making sure you're not disturbing the ground?
Just don't disturb that environment. If you know where they are, don't do anything.
Yeah, okay.
Don't do anything. Just leave it. That's the hardest thing for all of us to do, is to back off and say no. But that environment, if it's producing the fireflies, it's doing very well. Just don't let bushfires through, because that has a disastrous effect.
This is so because my background is more in sort of general ecology rather than just fireflies. I think another thing that's important to note here is I think we often forget just how big of an impact our footstep can have, like on the forest floor. I mean, you wouldn't be wearing high heels in a forest, but they say that when you're standing in a high heel shoe, the force being put on the ground from that heel is greater than the entire force that the Burj Khalifa puts on the ground. We have, our feet are like little mini bulldozers. I mean, when we go off the track, go off the path, we can really have a very significant impact, even when we think we don't, because we don't think anything about like where we step. We don't think we're having that much of an impact, but we really can be, even unintentionally.
But we're potentially crushing the pupa, and I've just done a post on the pupa. We've actually watched one go all the way through from a very fresh pupa in 12 to 13 days to an adult, just from point danger. And you're treading on potentially on the eggs and the larvae, and if they're flightless females, you're treading on the flightless females.
Not to mention compacting soil. You can be impacting how plants grow,
impacting the leaf litter, destroying the leaf litter,
all sorts,
destroying the fungi, destroying the snails and slugs.
I think
everything else.
If there's one thing that fireflies really help to make clear for us, is that the relationships in these forests are so complex, complex to a point that we don't really quite understand yet. I think fireflies are a good window into that.
Yep.
They really help to highlight that there's so many things that we don't know about. All the interactions going on.
That's why I love them.
Yeah.
They're carnivores and they're complex.
Exactly.
And way more complex than butterflies and host plants.
It's true. So if they're carnivores, Leslie, why might they have developed the ability to flash? Where has that come from? Why would that be like an evolutionary advantage?
Oh, that the chances are that the light was developed initially by the larva. And that appears to be the way it was. And you might think, for a larva, what on earth of use is it? Well, you do understand protective or warning colorations, that there are things like certain beetles that are orange and black, and they're, you think, okay, I'm not going to go near them because they're advertising the fact that they may be distasteful. Well, funnily enough, light can have the same thing. Light can do the same thing. So most firefly larvae are very distasteful, but they have to be eaten for something to appreciate the fact that that's a bad taste. And then something that's eating it has to associate that bad taste with something else. And in this particular case, it's the light. So that while some of them may be eaten, very soon the predator will learn to associate the light with the bad taste. So it's called aposematism, for want of a better word.
It's so interesting, isn't it? How they how these complex strategies have. It's a miracle that they've managed to evolve. It's just fantastic, isn't it? All right. So one of the other questions that we have gotten is like, what can we do to protect fireflies and increase their numbers?
Well, the thing is that there are all the different areas where fireflies are found, so that if they're in national parks, you've just got to hope that people in the national parks, the rangers in the national parks, are doing the right thing. When you're in the national parks, you need to be careful and stay on the path. Don't wander off the path. But in other areas, like I was thinking in particular of this Lions Park in Corona Downs, where I think people will be going tonight in there in Brisbane to look at fireflies. And it's one of those things where at least the council has stepped in and is aware that this is an area where fireflies are breeding and that you can go and see them. And it says things like, be careful with what light you're using, but also stay on the path. Mm-hmm. But what's important for the rest of the year, because we get this display for maybe 2 or 3 weeks, it's the rest of the year, the firefly larvae are still there. And we need some sort of education program or another sign up that goes up there that says, please still stay on the path because the firefly larvae are still here. And if you get off the path, then you are squashing them. So that I think that will apply to anywhere, Lucy, where you see fireflies. If this is the Lions Park there at Corona Downs, I think is a really good example of an open area that's available for everybody, but they know they've got fireflies and they're doing something about it. Now, often that doesn't necessarily apply in other circumstances, depending on just where you are. But if we all appreciate that's the sort of thing we can do, then it's a start. That's all it is. It's just a start.
I think another thing worth mentioning is beyond sort of just protecting the land that they're already on is a lot of like one of the leading, I was reading a paper on this the other day, one of the leading causes of decline in firefly populations and of course all insect populations is land use change.
Well, habitat
loss, exactly. Yeah. And if there's an area that someone might know that there's fireflies at, there might be a possible development on that land. You can have quite a bit of power, especially on a local level. And I think the good thing about fireflies is they can be quite a charismatic species. And you could use that as a way to go to your local government or go to the developers or go to your councils and say, we should not clear this land because it is valuable habitat. So by trying to reduce land clearing or habitat clearing, not only are you benefiting every other animal in that ecosystem, but you are also protecting.
Yeah, but there's also something else, isn't there? There's light.
Yes.
Now, I don't know whether you know what's happened up there at Mount Gloria, not Mount Gloria, it's Mount Cooper.
Yeah.
But that's a classic example of how on earth did anybody ever think they were going to get away with that?
I know. For anyone who isn't aware of what's going on up there, it's this big light show at night that they've been doing, I think every night, with just thousands of LEDs, just lighting up the entire forest at night. And it's becoming a thing in quite a few areas in Australia. It's becoming quite or even just across the world, it's becoming quite a big.
The thing is that if we follow on the idea of what the light does, it is possible in certain circumstances to have light so that you still have the street lights doing the right thing, but you can have them shaded at the back so that, for example, let's say you have there's lovely areas where we've got areas in New South Wales here where their fireflies are just developing along the side of being seen along the side of the road. But you don't want the light to be shining, the light from the street lights, we don't want to be shining in there. And it's possible to do a little bit of agitating to get the lights so that the lights are shining in one direction, but not shining in the other, and fulfill what they need to be doing for the passers-by.
And we will be able to get to that point, I think, as more and more people become more interested in it. But,
I don't know, Helen. They haven't got to it yet in America.
No. But there's the whole loss of the night campaign is building as well.
Yeah.
But the whole problem for the whole Mount Cootha thing is that there are actually fireflies in some of the creek lines that flow off Mount Cootha, because I know someone from Barden that's seen them.
Yeah.
So there are some
They are
still
definitely
left.
there, and they would be getting disrupted by all that light, as well as all the other organisms, all the other animals and insects
Well, that
that
was
live
the actual
there.
point. Plants have circadian rhythms too.
Yes, this is it. Yeah.
So I'm actually going to play on that. Plants have circadian. Plants need to sleep too.
It's true. Yeah.
So there's but we just this LED lights is causing just so much more disruption now, because anybody can just buy them and put them up.
Okay, more questions?
Yes, let's have a
There
look.
was
So, what can we do to like encourage larger numbers of fireflies? Is that something that we should be?
No, that interestingly enough is largely dependent upon the climate at the time. For example, right now, that if there's a really big display, let's say Corona Downs again, we just look at that because that's something that people can see right now in Brisbane, and there's a really big display over the next couple of weeks. Everything's been right. It hasn't been too much rain. There hasn't been too much moonlight. People have been careful with their light and all that sort of thing. And you get a large number of larvae laid. It will still depend for the next couple of years exactly what the environmental conditions are like. So that protecting that environment, if you know that it's there, is the most important thing you can do. You can't necessarily cover all of the sorts of things that are going to go wrong or might adversely affect it over the next couple of years.
But I do think that we can encourage people that have them on their land and then have cleared areas next to habitat to not encroach further, because I actually have some friends that have then encroached into firefly habitat, not realizing that they're wiping out firefly habitat. But also there have been people on the page who have wanted to then extend their habitat. So it's about very carefully matching the vegetation that they have and extending the plantings, the vegetation, by planting the same species and extending the capacity for the leaf litter. But also using pioneer species from those particular ecosystems and bringing the plantings further into their properties.
But remember that most people can't go and see things on private properties.
No,
private properties are just an individual sort of
situation. I'm saying property owners, because I'm seeing people come through the Fireflies of Australia page who are saying we've got them on our property, and then they are asking a little bit about how to plant for fireflies, and I'm saying you can extend your plantings, what you're doing, what you've already got, by planting more of what you've already got.
More questions, Lucy?
Yeah. So why might their populations be restricted to such, or localized to such small areas? We often only see them in like little patches. Why?
That depends on whether you're in New South Wales or Queensland, I think. Queensland has a terrific population of fireflies further north, but what happens with most of the species of Australian fireflies that display in very large numbers, such as at Corona Downs tonight, have flightless females. Their females can't fly. So that once this whole thing is a mating dance. Once she's been impregnated and she lays her eggs, she's got to lay her eggs in the same area. And this then means that you get, with these particular ones, you'll get this display over a relatively small area, and it'll be the same. She can't go very far because she can't fly.
Like would it also maybe have something to do with they seem to be somewhat specialized to certain environments. We often see fireflies in certain environments, ones that sort of have these micro snails. Could it also be like, could they be more
well, it always has to be a moist environment that's going to support snails and slugs. Yeah. So that's why, you've got fireflies across the top of Australia, across the tropics, down the east coast. So not necessarily all that far in. It goes in probably as far west as about the Blue Mountains, but still in at least wet sclerophyll forest there.
Another question we've got here: are there any cool or weird facts about fireflies that could be really helpful for like environmental education centers? Or do you have any particular fun facts that you really enjoy?
Oh, look, I do, but I don't know whether it's going to be any use for anybody who wants to teach about them.
Well,
But
I mean, I think
way back when they were first putting up. Now this shows how long I've been working on it. But when we were into the early parts of space flight, before we ever put man up in a space flight thing, we had to send rockets up, and we had to be able to determine whether there was going to be whether we're going to bring back anything from space back to Earth. And for what they did with that was they did extract a firefly. They got lots of male fireflies, ground up their light organs, and sent that up in the rocket. And if there had been any living material coming back on the rocket, then that material would have glowed.
Wow.
And now the thing was, you see, that was all of this was in America, in the USA.
Yeah.
And one particular year, way back in the middle 60s, or before they ever put up a manned space flight, they had a drought and they couldn't get fireflies, so they wrote to me. So it's a high point of my life that NASA got in touch with me.
That's incredible.
And they said to me, would it be possible to come over? You've got fireflies over there. Could we come over and collect fireflies and make up for our shortfall? And I said, well, our fireflies are just around, so seasonal, 3 weeks here and 3 weeks there sort of thing. And so I think they gave up on the idea of coming in to see us. But
oh, that's a shame. We could have had our fireflies on the moon, but
no.
yeah.
The actual other fun fact is that the process of producing that light produces 2% heat. So it's a chemical reaction.
It's a chemical reaction, Helen, that actually occurs in us. And it's the chemical reaction that occurs in us. We have a reaction that occurs in us that uses the oxygen. So that's how we use the oxygen that we breathe in. And all that's happened in the firefly is that they're just one of that particular set of reactions has been co-opted or into something else.
Yeah,
but it still uses oxygen. Same thing.
That's a really cool fact.
So how do they produce this light then? Tell us more about the light organs and about you don't need to get too into the biology, but like just like what chemical reaction is going on there?
Well, they have to have a base sub-material called luciferin, and they have to have, all chemical reactions need an enzyme to make that reaction go, and the enzyme is called luciferase, and this chemical reaction will only proceed in the presence of oxygen, and they are able to let oxygen into their light organ or stop it, and it's that reason that you get the rhythmic flashing of fireflies, because they are breathing in, breathing out, breathing. It's a bit like that. That's a very simplified sort of description.
That's brilliant. All right, we do have a question over here from Jeff. He's asking, are the North Queensland populations declining or are they okay? And he also says he'll never forget seeing them near Tully with glowworms and luminous fungi. That must have been incredible.
Well, I think I've been up there around Tully, and it's at a fellow Olivieri that I collected up around Tully as well. Now, not as far as we know, but I know that for example, on the Atherton Tableland, the area of the rainforest on the Atherton Tableland has just shrunk, and we just don't know with areas up there, which makes it very hard to assess. But and they've got so many fireflies, a lot of them are in out of the way places, so that they are in national parks. Jeff Monteith, the late Jeff Monteith, did a lot of this collecting, and he went into out of the way places that other people you had to walk in for a whole day just to get to the spot, so that those things are safe, because they're in out of the way places. But certainly things on the Atherton Tableland I'd be a bit concerned about. Although Jenny Wright up there on the Atherton Tableland, she's near the Crater Lakes, and she's the one who sent me what we thought was a new species of firefly last year. Well, she collected a whole lot more, and it turned out that we didn't get a new species, but it turned out that she's got 3 different species that she was just able to collect just within some of them were just on her driveway.
Yeah, wow. I would a part of this also because we like I said, we just kind of don't know. So I think it's worth mentioning also that we don't know how the populations of a lot of different species of insects are going at the moment, because there's not a lot of people researching invertebrates. And there's so many of them that it's really quite hard to do very detailed, quantitative work on their populations and their declines.
But you've heard of the red listing, haven't you?
Yes, of course,
yeah. Well, the fireflies are being well looked after in terms of being red listed. Now, it may not, and where our fireflies will be too, even though we don't have that sort of information. That we're going to sort of try to put together. You'll probably be involved in this directly too. So sort of lists of things that could potentially be a problem, and then once they get onto the red list, then it's possible to tell everybody about them. Look, this is a problem. But a couple of the very sad things about it is that there was a new species of firefly from Hong Kong. Now, Hong Kong's a bit of a problem because they're just intruding onto their environment all the time there. But this particular new species was only described in 2011, and it's on the red list already.
Oh no!
So
it is terrible, isn't it? These things are just progressing so quickly in areas with so much habitat loss and land use change.
People might usefully hear a bit more about what the red listing process is.
Yeah, that could be a valuable conversation. Yeah, would you like to tell us more about the IUCN assessment?
Well, it's a quite a complicated system.
Yeah.
And if you had actually watched the recent conference in Mexico, one of the introductory plenary talk was by Sarah Lewis, who went over what the idea is. The idea of red listing is to try to establish whether species are endangered, so that there are different sort of categories and classifications and different ways. It's quite a long-winded and complicated process, and I could probably tell you a lot more about it once I've been involved in helping them put the list together. But I'm only doing it on the sidelines. So that is the idea, that once the idea is it becomes a bargaining tool once you know once you know that something is endangered. For example, let's say it was the Blue Mountains firefly. Everybody knows in New South Wales knows about the Blue Mountains firefly. And if we were able to say, well, look, we've got problems with this, and this is the sort of places where it is, and these are the areas we need to look at, you've got some sort of bargaining chip then to actually, but it has to get to that stage.
Yeah, it's unfortunate.
A bargaining chip, and it's really sad.
It is really sad. It's frustrating seeing these things that are obviously so incredible and form such an important part of our biodiversity, and it takes for organisms. This goes for mammals too. It takes for them to become threatened or endangered before anyone starts paying attention. There's little interest in protecting them before that happens, unfortunately. But maybe with time the tides might change. So I've got another question here. To bring it back, we mentioned artificial light at night and the impact of light.
Alan.
Yeah, Alan, there you go. But what actually is the impact of light on fireflies? If they respond to light, why is it bad if there's more of it?
Well, they're not really responding to light, are they? They're not flashing during the daytime. They are flashing at a certain time at night. Now, for the most part, it appears that they flash relatively early when their light can make a difference, so they can actually see each other. And it would appear that if they do it early enough, I mean, let's face it, if you're going to race around and flashing your light around all the time, something's going to eat you. So that it's possible that the time period when they do it means that they can get their mating all over and done with and hide before the predators come out, so that the bigger predators, so that gets that out of the road. But the thing is that the environment must be such that the males can not only see each other, but the males are looking for a female. Now, I know that Darwin might have said something about female choice, and there's no question about it that female choice operates in fireflies, because most of our fireflies and the ones that they will see at Karana Downs has a flightless female. So she is appears to be very choosy. It is, you know, I don't know how as a female you assess which one of these millions of flying males is the one that's your choice. But she has an intricate sort of dialogue as well. She flashes, she doesn't flash very often. And Helen will, I'm sure Helen's seen this as well in trying to look for these things that you know, I make a big thing of how interested I am in the females, but we see very few females.
Well, Lucy,
and they're there.
Yeah.
There must be lots of them there, but you know, they only need to be mated once.
Yeah.
And of course, you know, that might be 2 seconds of flashing and the male sees her and then boom, boom, we're all done, thank you very much, sort of thing. So so it's important that the males can see that light. And that's where we run into problems. We have been, in some respects, Lucy, too successful with our Fireflies of Australia page, Facebook page, in that we now get all these people writing in and telling us where they are, and we then advertise that as well, and this attracts large numbers of people there. And what we've got to try and do, because Helen and I differ a little bit on how we view this light problem, but if you get a whole lot of people going there and they've all just got conventional torches, then those poor males are not going to be able to see the female. And you talked about before about what can we do to ensure that the numbers in a couple of years' time are okay. Well, if you did that every night for the 3 weeks of their mating season, then you may well have, the numbers must have diminished like crazy because you stopped the mating process.
I have no problem
to see the female.
I have no problem with that. I have a problem with white lights in those situations. Not that we should not be using any light if we can get away with it, but if we need to use light, then there's a growing body of evidence that amber light is better for human vision, and the white lights that are available now, especially LED lights and especially as head torches, are actually attracting other insects, especially if they have got UV. They're attracting people.
I just think that I think it's very that our advice on our page should be about what's best for the fireflies, that we can't really,
I agree.
Give advice to people about how they conduct themselves. Otherwise, you know, we hope that our people who get onto the Facebook page are tuned in to what sort of things they, you know, that they understand better how to deal with looking after the fireflies.
I think this is where it becomes quite an interesting dialogue, because it ends up becoming in these sorts of situations, because a lot of the discussion about like using light is about like it comes back to human safety. We all want to go out and enjoy it, and especially as people who are trying to facilitate this and allow this to happen, you have to think about the safety of the people who are like following your advice and going into these areas. And it becomes this sort of, I guess it sort of becomes like a cost-benefit analysis that we haven't quite figured out yet entirely, I think, between at what point, how do we maximize both human safety and also, protecting the fireflies.
Sometimes I know that there have been circumstances, for example, around Port Macquarie and places like that, where there are people like who actually run. They'll say, come and meet me here and we can all go and have a look at the fireflies together. And that's the circumstance, I think, in which large numbers of people get together. If you can get a large number of people together, and I think you're involved in one of these, Helen, where they all assembled still in the daylight, and they were
That's what we do.
talked to about this is how you behave yourself, and they were then taken through. This is where we are going to walk tonight. This is what the path looks like now in the daylight, so you'll see anything that you might trip over, because we want to minimize the light.
Yeah.
And you educate your public before you go, and then you tell them, well, okay, yes, if you're going to use a torch, because I've just got a very old-fashioned conventional torch, but don't shine it at the fireflies. They can't see each other. Shine it on the path. If at the very, and Helen was talking, I think, about red lights that you can buy if you want. Red light. Fireflies can't see red light, but at my age, red light is a bit. I can't cope with red light too well. So.
Yeah, red light isn't necessarily, I think, also like the best for eyes. I think that a lot of the evidence says that like sort of amber orange light is the best, but it is a big conversation, and I think that there's a lot more research to be done on it.
Well,
to change the conversation real quick, I do also have a question here from Peter, who says we've had a heavy rain in the past few months here in the Northern Rivers region. Does that affect the breeding season, and do they favor the nights of the new moon and the darker nights of the month?
Now, what's more likely? Northern Rivers, they'll have Adafella scintillans coming. They should be having it coming out now, and what will affect it more than anything is remember the pupae are under the soil. So if the soil has become soft because it's rained, then the pupae are much more likely to emerge. So do they favour different lights to, like, once they've emerged, if they haven't been successful tonight, they're going to be back tomorrow night and the night after. And do they favour different sorts of lights? I think the problem with moonlight is that it depends on whether you're in a forest or not. Because if you're in some sort of forested area, that the moonlight is filtered out at any rate. Whereas if you're in an open sort of grassland, where the moonlight is very obvious, but it's the moisture that is possibly making it easier for the pupae to emerge, the adults to emerge from the pupae, that it's softened the soil. And you see that with lots of different sorts of insects.
Do we know at what point like rains might become too heavy, or they might start like negatively impacting the population?
Oh, yeah, of course.
Yeah. I guess when it's torrential flooding and stuff like that.
Well, and the problem is that over the next couple of days, aren't we having a massive, or you may not be aware of it, but we're having a massive downpour.
Oh, I've heard, yes. The Central Coast has been getting
So and that's could be really sad for the firefly population. I mean, it's not just the firefly population which is going to be affected, obviously. There'll be all sorts of things affected.
Yeah. And then the second part of Peter's question was that, do they favour the nights of the new moon and those darker nights of the month? I know we sort of just mentioned that, like with the.
No, I don't think so.
Yeah,
I don't think so. I think the moonlight. No, and I've never found that.
I've actually seen the firefly that's called Astroluciola nigra, which has females that fly. I've actually seen it flying in full moonlight.
Yeah, okay. It's one of those, I think it's, especially with the fireflies with quite a small season. This is just completely me thinking out loud. But it wouldn't quite make sense for them to have a negative reaction to that full moon, considering that if they have a fairly small active, well, I say active, but a breeding season where they're a display season. That's what I'm looking for. Yeah,
they gotta go for it when they can.
They gotta go for it when they can. And if you're waiting for like new moons or just those really quite dark nights, not the full moons, you're wiping out quite a bit of that.
They evolved. They evolved with the moon.
Yeah. Yeah.
Why would they react to moonlight?
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's an interesting thing, but I can't imagine it makes sense that like a brighter moon might impact their populations when you think about it, but then then with such a small,
well, remember that they do display very early on.
Yeah,
so that it may well be before the moon's very high. So it may not be having an effect at all.
With Australociola nigra, which got brought up just before, when we were also talking about Adaphyllus scintillans earlier, and about how like they all sort of, with the flightless female, means they all sort of, you have these sort of big congregations, I guess. What might be the benefit of a species like Australociola nigra not having a flightless female, and instead having much smaller populations that sort of move around
distributed populations?
Have a more
that particular species is spread all over the east coast. In fact, it's spread right up, possibly across to the Northern Territory as well. So it makes the original female was flighted, and one of the reasons why we may have flightless females in Australia in particular relates to the fact that maybe once upon a time, a long, long time ago, Helen can answer this better than me, is that most of the east coast was covered in rainforest. And then the rainforest retracted and it was cleared, and all of a sudden we are setting up barriers. We've set up some of the barriers ourselves, and so that sort of why should there's all sorts of reasons why fireflies might develop flightless females, when you think that it does restrict them to a certain area, so they can't make the best use of the environment, or the potential environment that might be there. But it costs a lot for a firefly to develop wings. Wings is possibly the largest expenditure of energy in the development of an insect. And if they can reduce their reliance on that, there are all sorts of other things that are happening too. But I wonder, with the development of the flightless females in Australia, is that most of them seem to be in areas where that's the only species there. So they don't have the competition. So there's no need to be flying to be competing with other species, so that the female is able to lose her wings, because she's going to get fertilized any rate. And there is not that interspecific competition that you see in a lot of other fireflies. But who knows?
You continue. I've got another question here from Jeff Thompson again. He is asking about.
This isn't Jeff Thompson from Brisbane, is it?
Yes, I think
it is Jeff Thompson. G'day, Jeff.
He's asking, what about the predatory fireflies that lure other species to be eaten? And he says that he thinks Jeff Monteith already said that they were present at that Tully site that we mentioned just before.
Okay.
Well, Jeff and I were both there at that Tully site, and I don't remember seeing that. The predatory females are the firefly femme fatales, where I've seen them. It's the most incredible thing to watch, that a female which a female which can fly, which flashes the rhythm of another species and attracts the male of the other species down to her, and then she eats him. And I've seen a whole field of this in Florida, where when I wasn't getting bitten alive by mosquitoes, it was just the most incredible thing to see. Here she is chomping down. As soon as she gets, you could see the males come down, and then the next thing, boom, it's dinner time. Now, I do not remember seeing anything like that in Tully, and I was there one time when I went collecting up there, I was actually with Jeff Monteith. But if Jeff Thompson would like to remind me of what Jeff might have said, I'd be very happy.
He says, oh yeah, that was another time, and that they might have been, I think, higher up the mountain is what he says.
Okay, so maybe they were. It was one of the times when they were there, but I wasn't.
Any idea which species?
Yeah,
though?
do we have?
Jeff?
Well, the species round Tully is Adaphylla olivierii. That's the one, and it has a female which is on the verge of becoming flightless. So that's a bit of an unusual combination, because these species overseas, they're flighted female. This is an active, female that can fly extremely well, even if she is sitting in the grass doing her little bit to attract the males to her.
That's brilliant. So do we have predatory species in Australia then?
No, not as far as we're aware. No, but that doesn't mean that we may not find them. It's just that we don't know. We don't know, but we haven't seen any.
Yeah. Also, so the adults have mouth parts then? Is that common?
Oh yeah. Adults, yeah. And the adults and the larvae have mandibles. No, I don't know whether anybody can see this, but you can probably see it. It's shaped like that. Yeah. And they have they pierce, so it's like sickles, like a sickle shaped sort of thing. Okay. And they have a canal that runs down through that. So and when they pierce the snail, they can actually inject midgut juices into the snail and they paralyze it. So they might just go nip, 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 and then this poor old snail retreats into its shell and eventually can't come out again, and it's cannibalized. So what the larva then does is just secretes some more digestive enzymes into the snail, liquefies its food. It's the most disgusting way of eating, and then slurps it all up. It doesn't slurp it up through the mandibles, the jaws. It actually has a whole series of hairs around its mouth, and it can strain. It's a bit like a whale, straining the food through that. And the adults have the same mouth parts, and they tend to be so busy with everything else they're doing that they don't they may not feed. That when an adult's only there to mate and get it all over and done with, thank you very much. Often they might only live for a week as an adult, and they don't feed, but they can feed on nectar sometimes. Adults overseas in Malaysia, the Pteroptics fireflies over there are known to sometimes feed on nectar because they'll be a bit longer lived than our fireflies are.
But I think you've just added another cool fact to the list of cool and weird facts.
Yeah, I think so. Is it safe to say? That's awesome. I don't know why I think I think a few other people have just assumed they don't have mouth parts as adults.
No, that's very long. It's all right. I'm onto that. Onto that. There is a site on the internet. You know that there are lots of things that are incorrect on the internet. Oh, well, there is a site on the internet that should be correct, and I just wrote to them the other day, and they are telling me that that I can write something else and correct it for them because they are saying the Blue Mountains firefly doesn't have mouth parts, and all fireflies have mouth parts, and they all can potentially feed. They just may not choose to feed as adults. They're too busy. They're too busy doing other things.
Too busy trying to get it on.
It's all about real estate.
Yeah, I mean,
all about my
children listening, are they?
Yeah. At the end of the day, everything comes down to energy and reproduction. When it comes
I've got the biggest best spot.
That's exactly it. All organisms.
Best item.
It's wonderful stuff. All right, I mean, we're coming close to 6:30 here, the end of the live stream. If anyone has any other questions, any last questions, they should drop them in now. Before we finish up. I think we went through all the other questions that have been asked earlier. But if you have any last questions, get them in now before it's too late. Who knows when we'll do another one of these? I think the last one was about 8-9 months ago.
Yep.
So
might do a few more depending on the desire.
Well, I think the important thing about this one is that you're in Brisbane, so you know that people are going out tonight to actually look at Karana Downs, for example. So I think Nelson was posting about what's happening out there. So he said, give it another week or so, and they'll be all over the place. So
they're already displaying at Gold Creek Reservoir. My daughter found them there about 2 weeks ago now.
Okay.
And I'm thinking of doing a little pop-up event there on Saturday night if the weather's good, and maybe Sunday night if the weather's not so good, because it's really accessible. And you can see the fireflies from the car park, and you don't need to trample or do anything to anything.
Yeah,
you can just see them flying.
It's a wonderful sight, and it's a big display too. It's a very healthy, robust display there.
Yep.
Can you find out what species it is, Helen?
Oh, we know it's Ataphyllocintillans
Yes,
already.
Oh, it is.
Yeah,
Okay.
And later in the year, they've got Astroluciola nigra as well.
Yeah.
We got them ID'd last year, so.
Yeah, it's a wonderful spot. It's a good spot that I often will take like friends and interested people to as well.
They're all along Gold Creek. They're all along that. Ataphyllocintillans is all along the creeks out in that western area. They should be starting at Colo Creek. They have started at Mount Crosby, but all of those areas are sort of fairly continuous with Corona Downs.
Well, I bet there's quite a bit of connectivity between those areas out west of. I mean, for anyone who's not from Brisbane, we're all the areas we've been talking about pretty much today, especially like Corona Downs and now like Gold Creek. They're also about towards the west of Brisbane.
And it's mountains all the way
It's all
through.
quite mountainous, and then there's also quite a few spots where it just hasn't been developed yet.
It's developing fast.
It is developing very fast, but as of now, it remains, I won't say untouched, but just less developed than other places. And there's still just quickly, there's a concept in ecology called like habitat connectivity, and having high connectivity between habitats means that you can have a bigger connection between them, from organisms can travel between them easier,
more easily.
They don't have wingless females though.
Yes, very hard with the flightless females, but it just no,
they get washed of it. They can get washed down though.
Yeah, there you go. Like they oftentimes in those creek lines, like that water's coming down, it's moving that leaf litter, it's moving it would be moving eggs and other critters, right? Or maybe
as long as it's not drowning. Yeah. So is that all the questions?
We do have one last one from Jeff again. He's saying, are there any species of fireflies in Australia yet to be described?
Oh, Jeffrey.
How would you know?
Yes. Oh no, wait a minute. Not in Australia. I just have some material from the South Australian Museum that I have to return, and there's a new species in there from New Guinea. As to Australia, I think what needs to be done with the Australian things is we need to get someone interested in doing some molecular biology, because it's one thing to do morphology, and but there's a possibility that some of the things that have been all put in the one species, like flavicollis across the northern part of Australia, is very variable in the elytral coloration, and it sort of occurs all over the place. So it wasn't possible to sort of say, look, we only have this one in this position and this one in this position. And I think that there is a chance that might be. But given that you and Jeff, among others, did such a wonderful job collecting in far north Queensland, I don't think that there's anything left to find. But, wouldn't it be wonderful if we could? This
opens up a whole discussion about taxonomy, doesn't it? You could get so deep into how we tackle taxonomy, about whether you go at it morphologically or genetically, like how it's incredible how massive of a conversation there is happening at the moment about taxonomy. One
of the things I was involved with at the Firefly International Symposium, which is held every 3 years, which is when you were elected, Lucy, by the way, that was just held in Mexico. And on the first day, we had an hour session just on taxonomy. So there were 4 of us, and I joined from here, and we were talking about one of the problems that taxonomists have to do is sometimes to justify their existence.
That's exactly it. In some of my field research, I've worked with a caddisfly taxonomist or a trichoptera taxonomist, and one of the things we were talking about a lot in the field was about how there are very few people who are wanting to pick up taxonomist roles. It's one of those roles in science that there's not a lot of people going into it, and it is gonna have problems if it continues, because it is a very essential role.
And it's so critical at a time when biodiversity loss is so high and so little is named.
Yeah,
it's just, it all started coming really unstuck when entomology departments got folded into zoology departments across the Western
world. Tell me about it. I started my life in a really department.
that was a really marked point for a whole lot of stuff, just folding for entomology. And it's just getting worse in terms of collection stuff.
It's
apparently.
true, yeah. All right, well, that brings us to 6:30.
Let's thank Leslie.
Yeah,
and,
Leslie, thank you very, very much for giving us your time this afternoon, your expertise. We all appreciate it so very much.
And thank you to the audience.
Yeah, thank you to everyone.
And thank
listening.
you, Lucy, for doing all the tech stuff and offering lots of engaging conversation.
Hey,
and
it's what I love to do.
Keep up the good work making observations, folks, and put in lots of pics, close up, in focus pics with locations and a bit of good data on when you're seeing them and what the temperature is, because we need to know if they stop displaying at particular times.
Yeah, if there's one thing I can say before we do go, it's that citizen science is so valuable, especially when it comes to things like fireflies and insects, where it's difficult to go out and collect that data ourselves. There's not a lot of funding for this kind of stuff, and
Leslie would still like specimens.
Yes, always on the hunt for specimens.
Yep. We still need specimens.
Alrighty, well, thank you very much. I think we'll bring it to an end there then. Anything else to say before we go, Leslie?
No, just I hope everybody enjoys their night viewing tonight.
And stay off the path. Stay on the path. Yeah, there we go. All right. Anything else to add, Helen?
Just technical stuff.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
All right. Have a good night. See ya.
See ya. Bye.